Hello, and welcome to Pink Sky Inspired Conversations with Enid O'Toole and Lucy Ashby. Today we are talking with Gemma Lea. Gemma is fat, 40, and after 30 years of an unhealthy relationship with food and her body, she decided to make the journey down the marvellous yellow brick road that is body positivity. Writing under the name Madam Monkey, Gemma blogs about what it's like trying to find herself after years of struggling with her self-worth. She also creates illustrations and artwork to promote positive body image, including her first children's story, Welcome to Bopovia, which was published on her website, www.madammonkey.com. During lockdown, she filmed 100 daily vlogs, documenting the challenges and the oddities of this crazy world we find ourselves in. Gemma wants to share her experiences in the hope that it might just inspire other people to take the journey towards self-love.
Right, lovely. So it's really lovely to have you here, and I'm really excited to find out what you've been doing. I know you've been very busy with work, but also other projects. So our first question is, Gemma, what makes you feel really inspired?
So, I've over the last few years, I've been writing a blog about body positivity and body acceptance, and it's one of those things where I kind of like with my sort of bio, it's like one of those things where I sort of say, right, I've had a really unhealthy relationship with food and my body for 30 years, and I'm done with it now. And I think when I hear stories of people overcoming adversity in terms of their self-worth, their self-image, when people are starting to turn around to the system and turn around and go, do you know what, this isn't right? That's the sort of thing that sort of really gets me excited. And, like people like Jamil, who sort of, it's just suddenly just sticks a good old fashioned V up at the sort of the media, and I think for me it's hearing about, like, I get really excited when people sort of turn around and start to talk about different bodies, different shapes, everything, and being inclusive. And as someone that has absolutely torn herself to pieces for years and years and years and years, I will not do the same for other people. It's nice to hear other people going, hey, I feel the same too. And I think when you realise you're not alone and that it isn't just you and you're not defective, I think there's some really powerful stuff there. And so when I do a lot of body positive work with my students. I had a little Bopo club, my little Bopo warriors, and when they would turn up, it was just marvellous. And we would turn up every week and have these really honest discussions about body image in the media, about how they perceive themselves or how they've been perceived in the past. And it's so powerful, and it just makes me want to. It makes me want to be better, in the sense of how I view myself, for them, to sort of say, because all the time I'm sort of putting myself down. I think, it's that element, isn't it? If I put myself down, it means I'm putting people that look like me down or whatever. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm really hearing that. I loved it when you mentioned about your work at school, because obviously, Gemma, you're a teacher. So what kind of like really nice feedback and observations have they made? Or have they gone through some changes in terms of their own self-image because of the work and the projects that you've done?
Yeah, well, pre-lockdown, unfortunately, we can't meet at the moment because everyone's in bubbles. So, but they still want to do something. So they were like, "Can we create a Teams? So we could do it on Microsoft Teams." Like the fact that they want to be out there and saying to people, "Hey, look, do you know what? You're amazing. You're beautiful." It's just lovely, and the conversations that students have when they feel that another is being sort of they're being sort of negative towards themselves, they'll shut that down, and I think it's lovely, and I think it's something that I would like to see happening sort of how much, you know, that it would be my mission to be that person to go around to sort of kids and schools and say, hey, look, you know, think about what you're saying. You know, because whenever I tell them my story, it always starts with me at about 7 years old, telling my friend that I wanted to be a model, because there was this TV program called Cover Up. And it was like, they were crime fighting models, right? They were like, no guns. And it was like proper 80s, absolute guff. But, you know, I was like, yeah, I'm going to be a model when I'm older. And my friend, a next door neighbour who I walked to school with, said, you can't do that, you're too fat. And weirdly, at the age of 7, it stuck with me. And there's a lot more to it, obviously. It's not like that one comment absolutely shattered my world. I mean, growing up in the 80s, it was the go-to thing, you know? You know, shut up, you're fat, you know, your mum's fat, you know, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, you're right. It was sort of, it was kind of acceptable, an acceptable kind of insult, wasn't it? Or seen as that way then.
Even into the sort of 2000s, you know, when you see in films like things like Shallow Hal, which is a bit of a guilty pleasure of mine, but at the same time, it's just the jokes are, you know, thank you, I love Jack Black. Yeah, what can I say? You know, I've gone off a complete tangent, sorry.
No, I'm loving the tangent.
It's brilliant.
I'm inspired by the tangent.
We're actually in the right year, the 80s. We're in the right decade, in
oh,
fairness.
Yeah.
With the podcast, so that's cool.
Yeah. It's just, I think when you're sort of talking about it, it's just making me sort of reminding me how pervasive that is. That okay, I know you're sort of, we're celebrating in a way that things have changed a bit, but you're just reminding me that, you know, it's stuff people say, it's in the media, it's everywhere. Those little messages that you're getting that, you know, you're not quite, I don't know, good enough or the right shape, or you know, just like not quite right. And that over time, it sounds like for you and for lots of people, those messages like you don't quite fit in the box can be really damaging. And how fantastic to be trying to turn that round.
Well, I mean, I am that annoying person at school that kind of goes, have you seen what Avon's done? They've done a commercial about cellulite where they said the only place that dimples are cute are on your cheeks, not on your thighs. And I sort of I know. And I sort of sent it out to the whole of the school. And I sent it out and I said, but I also put in the facts about it. I was like, do you know what cellulite is? Do you know how many people have it? It's not just women that have it. You know, the fact is that even models have it, you can't see it. And I was sort of, you know, and I keep trying to drum into the kids that what you're seeing is a false reality, but they live in the world of Snapchat. Like that, I can't even begin to go down what Snapchat, you know, filters. They are so dangerous, and you know, it's only a matter of time before someone invents a, you know, I don't know, digital mirror that where the kids can see themselves looking the way that they think that they look on Snapchat. So I don't know.
God, that's true. That is true. That's a very kind of insidious way, isn't it, of, you know, altering our appearances to a certain type. Like this, I guess I've kind of involved myself in the funny side of that when, you know, Ruby's had funny filters, you know, the animals, things like that. But I guess I hadn't really thought about, you know, that other side of it. Yeah, that's potentially horrible, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Don't get me wrong, I have taken photographs myself as a thumb, you know, from Snapchat filters, you know, you know, as a cat, you know, yeah, you know, I've done that. You know, I admittedly, you know, I've sort of played around with the beauty filters, but even my phone, you know, if I put a selfie on, my phone is automatically set at number 5 on the beauty level. Like it doesn't automatically start at 0. It's automatically at 5. When you go to 10, I look about 12.
Blimey, Gemma. Oh my God, we're gonna talk all night here. This is fabulous. I'm loving this.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah, we'll have to do two episodes.
Yeah.
2 episodes.
We'll do that.
Right, I will let you get word in edgeways now, Enid.
Well, it's interesting because you know, we were talking about the 80s, and of course the 80s is where the podcast is well, it's where it starts basically. Well, no, it starts in the 60s, but the majority of it is the 80s and 90s. So you know, when you talk about the 80s and the way that things were different, and I mean, you hear that obviously in the podcast as well, I guess. So I guess my question is, I mean, you've listened to the podcast twice. You've listened to the podcast twice now, which even even I have not listened to the podcast twice. So you're out there as a diamond fan. So I guess my question is, based on what we've been talking about and the period that we're talking about as well. What in the podcast do you think perhaps inspired you? Because there's lots and lots of similarities, obviously facing the same kind of prejudices and the same kind of things that, that said, you can't do this and you can't do that and you've got to be a certain way. So
yeah, I mean, I think it's so funny because I sort of started, out of all the questions that we've sort of looked at, I've made the most notes for this bit because I was like, I'm so excited by this, and this is exciting, and I mean, as I said earlier, like my absolute beautiful moment was when you're in the bar, fully dressed in your pilot uniform, and you tell your cousin to F off. And it is just this moment of pure joy. And I think I may have said this to you guys that I actually was in the gym at the time and fist pumped the air and went, yes! I was so overjoyed by that. But I mean, it's like being so honest, I think is the first thing for me. That you kind of go right back to your absolute most rawest times and can talk about it with such sort of grace and reflection and a place from self-awareness, obviously, where you've worked through all these issues. It's just for me, I just think it's so inspiring, and I think that people need to maybe take, if people can take away from this, that, oh, actually, do you know what? Maybe I need to go and get some help or talk to somebody, just to get to the bottom of that, because, you had a lot to unpick, from the time, from the era that you were born and all that, to sort of facing the fact that, you're sort of mixed race woman who's gay, and trying to be a pilot, like it's just so many. And the thing is that each time it feels like, when you talk about it, you sort of you there's an element where you're sort of a bit self-deprecating about the way you felt about yourself, but yet every time it felt like there was something that hit it away, and I just adore you for it. I really do. It's just marvelous, and I think it's just. I'll tell you what, something, when we talked about the validation, like some cruel treatment that you received from, your father and that. Now, I was very lucky in the sense that I had a good upbringing. My parents' divorce had a big impact on me, but that wasn't their fault. That was just a situation that caused it. But the fact that, you validate, like some of the things that if you hit a small bump, that validation, it validated that cruel treatment, and it validated how you felt about yourself. Now, I, due to my sort of parents' divorce, and had to unpick a lot of this in therapy, and I would have told you a million times over that no, it didn't affect me. I was fine. I've got an amazing family. I've got I've got two amazing sets of parents. I've got two amazing families. They're wonderful, and I'm very, very lucky. And what I didn't realize is at the time, as a small child, that I felt the need to be a good girl, because if I was a good girl, then people would still love me. And any small lapse in judgment or anything that I did wrong, I saw it as catastrophic. And I think it's really important when you sort of use the terms that you were stupid and lazy, and that's a lot of how I kind of have that sort of mental health thing. I call it the voice. I don't know if anybody else gets it. It's my inner critic. He loves to tell me I'm stupid and lazy, and that I don't deserve things. I mean, I think I must have sent Lucy, God knows how many messages going, I don't feel worthy of being on this podcast. I think it's like the self-sabotage stuff, and all that sort of stuff. I think it's so important to get that out there and have people hear it, because they don't realise they're doing it, or that they don't realise, that other people do it.
Like the impact of it on the rest of their lives. Yeah. Yes, I think you're right. And I think you're talking about, not necessarily going to a counsellor, but just exploring like your past and how it's impacted you. Doesn't have to be with blame and shame. It doesn't have to be about that, but it just can really help you to think of like, where are my blocks? Why am I really sensitive about certain things? Why are some things just repeatedly not working for me? And, we've both found that's been a helpful process, in a different, obviously I'm a counsellor myself, but I've done a lot of work, about self-awareness, and it's been really helpful. And I'm virtually like a perfect person now. Would you agree, Enid?
Yes, Lucy, I would agree. You're a perfect person. Edit. Yeah.
Oh, dear. Anyway, yes. So yes, I really had. So have you felt through doing the podcast that that's been therapeutic for you?
Well, I think so, and I think I think this can apply to anybody's life and everyone's life in a way, because not only is the therapeutic element, but also it's realizing that when you run back through your life, you in a way you see it with fresh eyes, because you can't change it. It is what it is. And at the times you recognize how you felt about it, but you were actually in it at the time. So a lot of the reason behind the podcast is not only to tell the story and hopefully make people laugh and cry and all the rest of it. It's for them to get in touch with their emotions, but also to know that there are people out there who are in the same boat. It may not be exactly the same issues, but they are the same kind of things that happen to you, and we all handle things differently, and there's no right or wrong way in that. It is what it is from that point, and it's about getting in touch with that, and also saying, look, you're not alone. These things have happened. There's nothing to be ashamed of, but it's about owning it. I think it's about just addressing it head on as well, and that really is the the theme of the podcast, is to tell a story, to tell a true story, to make it raw, to make it honest, because I think if you dress it up and make it palatable perhaps for people to listen to, it's not necessarily the truth, and I'm a great believer in telling the truth, particularly with things like that, and it's a very, very personal journey. But yes, the idea was to get people thinking and saying, hey, we're all there, and for support as well. Thank you.
I think we all agree on that then.
Thank you.
Gemma, question. Oh, I'm looking forward to hearing your answer to this one.
Yes.
So, who are the people who've been the most influential in your life, do you think?
Now, you said 3 on here, and I wrote through, but I scribbled. But first of all, right, I am going to say, right, my mum and my nan, it's quite funny. I went out for some social distance bingo with my mum the other day, and suddenly realised that my mum has moved into my nan's spot, and I've moved into my mum's spot, right? And it's happened. We've actually gone full circle. We lost my nan last year, and absolutely, it's one of those things where my heart breaks every day when I think of her, because she was like ace. But the women in the family, and I'm quite lucky. I always sort of joke and I say that my family are a little bit like the episode of The Simpsons where Lisa thinks she's going to go really silly and stupid like Homer, because that's what happens. And then when he shows them all the Simpson women, they're all doctors and all that sort of stuff. And and I just sort of think like I am from a family of badass women who are pretty ace, and my mum and and my nan, God rest her soul, are at the top of that. I've got an amazing stepmom. I'm very, very, very lucky in that sense. But right now, I did wonder if you might be able to guess, Lucy, who I might have picked as an influential person to me in terms of being an art teacher, loving my skulls.
Oh, yeah, I think I know.
Oh,
having been to Mexico for my Frida. It's funny because I was listening to the Pinkspiration that you did with Faye, and she mentioned like Tina Turner, right? And I was just like, that's so cool, right? And I was like, I don't really have like a badass woman that I sort of like particularly follow, unless you want to consider the whole band of Pearl Jam, as being an influence on me. And not just because I absolutely desperately wanted to marry Eddie Vedder from the age of 12, I think. But anyway, so Frida Kahlo is just like, I will squeeze her into any scheme of work, even over lockdown. 1.0, I bought myself the Frida Kahlo Barbie, which was probably, I was conflicted, but at the same time I was like, I need this in my life. But Frida Kahlo, and I think it's funny because a lot of people see like my interest in Dia de los Muertos and all that as being kind of, I don't know, it can be, some people see it as cultural appropriation. I take it as cultural appreciation. Yeah, I know, you pulled the face. But it is that thing where I'm not walking around in hot pants, with a sugar skull stuck to my arse, right? It's something that I've read on, I've actually visited, I've seen, and I absolutely love it. And Frida Kahlo is, to me, the epitome of a strong ass woman. She was she battled with illness. She couldn't have children because of the bus accident she was in. Her husband was a philandering dick. She was sorry. Because when we tell the kids, I almost do it like a bit of a kind of like, I tell them about the life of Frida Kahlo, and then we look at the paintings, and I sort of say, and her husband had an affair, and they went, ooh, and I go, with her sister, and they go, oh. So they're like, oh. The pair of them had many, many affairs. But the thing is what I think is also wonderful about her, she was a very modern woman. Her dad was very modern in terms of, what he encouraged her to do wrestling and, sort of what would be considered at that sort of time masculine things. And, and she was very open about her sexuality as well at a time when it would have been, slightly more difficult. And I just think that, other than that, her paintings are just the most magical things on the planet. They're so little as well. I expected them all to be big, but then some of the most wonderful things come in small packages.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. There you go.
I think you went to the exhibition, didn't you, Gemma? I didn't get to see that. Was it at the V&A or I can't remember where it was.
It was a V&A where it was Frida as herself. It was a lot about her clothes and stuff like that, which was wonderful because it was more about the other side of her personality. Rather than just looking at the paintings, you could see how she dressed and things like her leg braces and her cast that she would wear and decorate. It's just wonderful.
What an interesting story, and how lovely for kids to be learning about that as well.
Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Well, I think it's really important, because we talk a lot about the identity, and when they can hear the story and then relate it straight back to the paintings, like you can see the little brains going, and it's just a sort of magic moment. You sort of say, well, why are these coconuts crying? It's like, it's not just because they've got milk in them, and they go, oh, is it because of this? And then one of them will kind of, oh, miss, there's a pole sticking through that piece of fruit. Does that represent the bus accident? And you're like, oh, love it, give it to me, and they love it because it's so rich, and it's not just another dead white male, which in art in terms of the curriculum, we struggle with introducing that, because it's always a case of, oh, well, we're not going to do a dead white male, we're going to do Georgia O'Keeffe instead. And it's like, well, okay, it's just a dead white female. It's like, and we're really starting to make it more proactive about what we can introduce into the curriculum. That's worthwhile. And Frida is she's just my babe. I love her.
Do some art
awesome.
history classes on Zoom for us. Okay,
Yeah,
I'll talk to you about that afterwards. Yeah. That's my next job for you. Yeah.
There was a final 2/3, but but I'm going to go for I need to give it a slight nod to a woman called Jess Baker, who wrote the book Things That No One Will Tell Fat Girls, and I took that on holiday with me 4. It must have been. It was just after I got married, I think. I took that on holiday with me, and it was the book that changed everything for me. It was the book where I sort of went, holy crap, I don't have to walk around feeling miserable about myself. Holy crap, I don't have to keep everything on hold. I mean, because how many times you can say, oh, I'm going to do that after I've lost weight, or, or I'm going to do that when I'm feeling better about myself, or, I don't feel sexy because I'm fat, and all that sort of stuff. And I think, and it just was one of these things, and it was what was quite a beautiful moment was, I was reading it, and then every night we would go to this same bar in this really little sort of scabby town in Mallorca, and it was just sort of like one of those places where the measures are about that big, and the Coke is like, so like absolutely sozzled, and I would have to sit there every night and then school my husband on what I just learned, and I'd be like, what is going on? I'm allowed to be happy? What is going on? And it was just things like facts, like 5% of women in America, only 5% of women in America could ever naturally achieve the body shape perpetuated by the American media. Things like that just put things in perspective for me, because I was like, why am I sitting around feeling embarrassed and miserable that I'm in a bikini at a beach, and living my best life, and I'm thinking that everyone's looking at me wanting to try to harpoon me, and no one gave no one gave me a second glance, they didn't care, but that's the way but that's where my brain goes to. I'm sorry, but For me, that just it's if anyone takes anything away from me, my ramblings today, please read that book and carry on. Obviously, listen to the podcast because this is ace.
That's so interesting. It's like you sort of realised, oh, I'd been taught I was allowed to do some things, even feel some things, and I wasn't allowed to do and feel other things. And now I realise that's crap. And actually, this is all available to me. I've just got to take it, kind of thing. That's huge, isn't it?
It was a total epiphany, and just to sort of have that moment of kind of going, oh crap. And then I came back when we got the morning. We sort of flew back in the night, and then the next morning, whilst husband face was snoring his head off, love him, I posted a thing on Facebook, and it was kind of the beginning of the blog, really, and it was all pictures of me in my bikini and other short things and things that I would never in a million years posted on Facebook, and just said, I think I put a warning at the top, warning, fat girl in a bikini and other small clothes. And then I went on this sort of rant about how I just needed to not sort of perpetuate the stereotype that I'm rubbish just because I'm a body shape that the media doesn't deem sort of worthy.
Oh wow, I really enjoyed hearing about that.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Amazing.
So we talk in the podcast about failure. I mean, failure. I mean, many things we talk about in the podcast, but failure is one of them. And as we grow up, we kind of, we won't talk about that because we've corrected that. We won't talk about it. But, I find that things like this are important to talk about because they're part of the whole. So your biggest failure and what you learned from it?
Now, it was one of those things where I was thinking, should I go a little bit light on this or do I go like full on, right? And it's kind of funny because we were talking about the self-sabotage thing, and I sort of Lucy mentioned earlier sort of about it being like a sort of a repetitive thing that you tend to do, and I call it touching the glass. Have you ever been to the chippy, right, and you go for your fish and chips and it's got a notice on the glass that says do not touch the glass, and what is the first thing that you do? You go, stick your hand straight on it. And it doesn't matter how many times that says, do not touch the glass, it is hot. It's hot. You've also felt it previous time. You will still touch that glass every time you come in. And I think for me, I know this is kind of like possibly a bit deep and all that, but I had a very good knack of touching the glass when it came to men, and particularly in terms of picking the particular types that would have a hold on me, and I didn't have enough self-esteem to realize things. And I've got to be honest, a few years ago I sort of joined a Facebook group that until then I didn't realize. I'd always suspected I'd been in a sort of abusive relationship. It was emotionally abusive rather than, there was never any physical, but I'd had my self-esteem torn down. I felt worthless, and I had no idea that things weren't supposed to be that way. Like if you look on TV, EastEnders, Hollyoaks, all those things that we grew up with, relationships are hard. They are awful. They're bitter and arguing, and it's passion, and you've got to have all these things. And I think for me it was the fact that I never learned that wasn't actually the norm. And actually, despite having parents who, although they'd split, but in their new relationships were in very settled relationships. It wasn't like, I saw lots of different relationships and that they were very settled and all that. For me, I don't know if it's a failure. I struggled. I didn't leave a bad relationship is what I'm trying to say, I think. And I think for me is that now, with hindsight, of course, it's a beautiful thing, is that I think that I wouldn't put myself through it again. Now, I went into, I had about 18 months of CBT following that relationship breakdown. And not just because of that, because of a lot of things that happened, but it made me realise my self-worth. And I think for me, not realising I was worthy of love, and that it was okay for me to walk away from a situation. And I think that was always it. I always felt, no matter what, I was trapped in a situation because I thought that's what you did. You just worked at it, sort of thing, And I think for me is that I'm thankful to say that I don't have to be in that situation again, hopefully. But, I wouldn't put myself in that situation again. I think my red flagometer is much better than it would have been. So I think for me is I wished I'd known that it was okay to leave something, and I think for me now, even in terms of, even if it's not even relationships, it's different things like a job or whatever, it's a case of, I don't have to put myself through this, I need to walk away. And I think for me, the takeaway obviously is quite powerful, that you do not have to do this.
Yeah.
It's a difficult one though, isn't it? Because while you're in it, it's your norm. It's your
Yeah.
normal. And it's not until you learn certain things that you realise that it doesn't have to be this way. And that for the duration, it is your normal. And,
Yeah.
people.
But I love that flag
Flagometer.
thing, the red flagometer. That
I like that.
really
Use that.
describes it.
Writing that down.
The sort of it's really good. It's like a kind of when you have the benefit of experience, isn't it? And hopefully you then use it, and you kind of see the signs, and like you say, you also think, I know what I will and won't put up with. As you say, not just in a loving relationship or whatever, but a job and all of those things.
I mean, it's something that I have, like, we have introduced like that, words like that at school about gaslighting, and things like that, because I didn't have a clue what gaslighting was until probably the last sort of 3 or 4 years. And when someone introduced that idea to me, my brain went, oh, and I sort of, again, like I say, like I'm watching students who are growing up in a world where they're watching Netflix and all these things where it's all high drama, and you sort of say to them, like, toxic relationships, they don't have to stay that way. You don't have to be in them. Even when it comes to like friendships, and things like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely.
So what do you feel most grateful for in your life, Gemma?
For getting through the Rona. I got through the COVID. I mean, it's one of those things where, kind of almost off the back of that terrible story of woe there, that I sort of asking for some help and going to sort of mental health professionals, and then sort of working things through. I was able to allow people, I was able to sort of allow people into sort of into my sanctum, as it were, and and that's how I met Husband Face. I had the confidence to tell him I liked him. I had, I had the confidence that to tell him that what I felt about him. I had the confidence to sort of say, actually, this is a nice guy, and recognise it and say, I want to be with that person. And you know what? He is a daily joy. He makes me absolutely laugh my pants off. And like, we had 2 fights during lockdown 1.0. Neither of those were to do with either of us. It was about something completely off the sort of charts. And and one of them was on the first day the pubs opened, because I mean, I don't know about anyone else, but that was really potent. And it was like, so, I mean, and just absolutely, like, I genuinely feel like I have an equal and a partner. Whereas I always felt like I was gasping for air or fighting all the time. And it's almost to the point where you're a bit suspicious, going, what, should it be this easy? Like, you two are couple goals, I'm saying, like, this is just absolute, like, perfection.
I'm just being honest, but I can totally relate to that. And sometimes at the start, I remember having those same feelings of, crikey, this is going well, like no drama other than inside me, like like self-doubt, but no drama. Then we come up against a hurdle. Oh, that was fine. Oh, now the next thing's fine. And and yes, there are things that you go through, and it doesn't mean that it's always kind of everybody's happy all the time. But yeah, like you say, when you're working as equals and you both really want the best for each other, that is a really lovely thing. And yeah, I agree with you. We're very, very lucky. Very lucky ladies, aren't we, girls?
We are very lucky. I just think it's one of those things where people are in these difficult sort of relationships, and you're like, do you know what, you deserve to feel happy. I spent most of my life not feeling like I deserve love. I just think it's extremely refreshing. And like I said earlier, I'm very lucky to have an amazing family and a really good friendship base, and my wonderful cyber family that I have as well,
How we met, listeners, on the line. We met on the line.
On the line.
And yes, it's been beautiful on the interweb. Right, you're up now.
Life lessons, some important lessons you've learnt in life. clearly we've all learnt many, many lessons, but maybe the ones that perhaps stand out to you. And
Yeah, sometimes drunk Gemma's really good in the morning, Gemma, and leaves notes about things that she's had weird thoughts about. So you always leave yourself notes. I think it's sort of come out of a couple of CBT techniques, which is when I talk to the kids about it, I call it Mrs. Lee's post-its, and I invariably wake up at 4:27 a.m. most mornings to kind of go, oh my God, what is my life? Why do I exist? What's happening? And that sort of stuff. The usual existential crisis. Yeah. and so I kind of do it as because when I'm at work, I tend to write post-it notes and put them all around my computer. So at 4:27 a.m. when I can't physically write that and put it around my computer, I do like I visualize it. So so I visualize writing it on, like the feel of the pen and what that would sound like on the paper, and the actual tearing it on, put it onto the computer screen, so that in my head I can put that thought to bed. So that's kind of like what some of my weird techniques. And there are some things that I have learned a lot through sort of cognitive behavior therapy, and things that you can do to reframe your thinking. Definitely though, is like, work-life balance. My husband will probably listen to this and go, but in terms of a little while ago, I became very unwell, and I was signed off for 2 weeks, and then at the end of the 2 weeks, I needed another 2 weeks, and I remember just being so sad. What about my classes? What about my classes? And the doctor said, "The classes are going to be fine. You're going to be fine." And I remember just sort of taking the fact that I took everything, I absorb everything. And I think it's the fact that I suddenly went, I need to look after myself. And I think, I often say to my students that self-love is not selfish. It's actually taking care of yourself. That is, very particularly from a very, very early age, I put myself last. And, I'm learning more to prioritize my thoughts and my feelings, over things. Obviously it can't be all the time. The cats come first most of the time. And so, but, in terms of, like I say, I would generally put myself at the bottom of the pile. And I think I've learned the hard way that that's not the right way to do things. But I think that's something that, has really, it's been a hard lesson to learn, but it's been important. So yeah, self-love.
absolutely.
Well, and kind of like a self-love and survival, really, in some ways, because I know I totally relate to that. I think I kind of almost enjoyed flagellating myself with never taking time off. Actually, it's just kind of annoying because you go to work, croaky voice or whatever, and everyone's just annoyed. They're like, you're obviously ill. And actually, it's just easier for everybody else if you're just sensible about it, isn't it? But that is a hard lesson. You have to get over the guilt. But then, as you say, guys, actually, it's better for you and others if you can be like that. So yeah, that's really important lesson. Yeah. Oh, so you love asking this question, but
I do actually.
Go on. You
ask.
ask. This is Enid's favourite question.
Thank you, Lucy. So this is one of my favourite questions, and this because I heard it on another podcast. I just think it opens it up. If you could have a billboard with anything on it, what would it be and why?
I desperately want to say an aeroplane and a picture of Lucy, because that was your answer. It really made me laugh because Lucy's going, she's being so literal. It really tickled me. And, I started to think about this, right? And then it's funny because I was sort of looking at this before, and then I listened to the podcast with Faye, and Faye said, "Be yourself." I think it was all the time, or something like that. And I was like, "Oh, damn! I've put be you." But then I was thinking about this, right? I put a couple of things there, like, because I often, I remember a while ago misunderstanding what "you are enough" means, and I remember kind of feeling like that just sounds really pathetic. But actually, when you think about, like, you are enough, it is the fact that for years I strived to be more to people, and try to be the better version of me for them rather than the better version of me for them. And I suppose, I'm sort of torn between "you are enough" and be kind. I know it's cheesy, but kindness is just what makes the world go round, right? I've got kind of like two parts. This is be kind and then always. Yeah, because it's like be kind to yourself, be kind to others, animals, just be nice. I don't see why people have to be gits. That sounds a little bit like one of those signs I made just at the beginning of lockdown, but it was don't be a don't be a dude.
Yes, yeah. Don't be a git. Yeah, especially at the moment, everything's so polarized, everything's divisive. It's all like, because we're all kind of, well, we feel very lucky, but there's people in desperate situations at the moment, aren't there?
Yeah.
And it does bring out a kind of an adversarial kind of atmosphere, doesn't it, in life and online and you're right. If we can all just kind of breathe and connect with each other in a more human and kind way, we'll get through it, won't we? If we can do that.
100%. Yeah, so my final answer is I think be kind always, with a big picture of my grinning goober face and double thumbs up going, yeah!
Oh,
excellent.
Jimmy Cranky moment.
We like that.
I do like. I think we should.
I think that's really cool.
Stop. You're good at graphics. You should like make these actual billboards like on the computer. Yeah, a little job for Enid. Yeah. Anyway, Gemma, it's been an absolute joy to speak to you, and I just wanted to say thank you for being so generous with your sort of honesty and
your time,
how real you've been, and
absolutely.
and how much energy you've given us. It's been an absolute delight.
Absolutely.
So, where can our listeners connect with you online or elsewhere?
So I have my blog site is www.madammonkey, and that's munki.com, where you can read my blog. I also have there's an @madammonkey Facebook and an @madammonkey Instagram, where you can join me to look at pictures of my cats and for the occasional rant about something that someone said about obesity or something random,
Fantastic.
Wow. Thank you so much, Gemma.
That's brilliant.
We wish you lots of luck in lockdown number 2.
Yeah.
And thanks again for joining us with us. It's been absolutely wonderful.
Brilliant.
Mwah.